What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be taking a first look and going for a first ride on a new steel hardtail, brand new model. It's from State. It's the 4130 Trail. Now, State's really known for having good value bikes. In the past, they were more about like a city focus, so with fixed gears and road bikes and things like that, all at really good prices. But over the last 5 or 6 years, they've really upped their game when it comes to dirt with their off-road division, as they call it. So the 4130 Trail Hardtail is their most recent addition to this off-road division, and it's got some pretty cool things going on. First of all, the frame, we'll start there. I got it in the West Sunset color. I also got it, you'll notice right here, it says medium. Really, it says it's a medium large. This was definitely the size for me. I honestly, if every brand offered a medium large, that's probably what I would pick over a large, just because I'm 5'11", and that's about the size that would work for me. I'm typically right on the edge of some of the sizes. We'll talk about the geometry and the fit in a minute, but first let's go over some of the specs. Double butted chromoly frame, which I think is a great thing for hardtails. Up front, it is running the RockShox Silo Silver. So it's an air fork and it's 130 millimeters of travel. I believe this is only available for bike companies or like manufacturers. I don't think you can get this on its own. I've heard mixed reviews of it, so we'll see how it does. It's got 35 millimeter stanchions, kind of to match the more trail focused part of this bike. It's not like a 34 millimeter XC fork. Back here, it's running the Microshift XLE 11-speed drivetrain. It does have a clutch on it, which is selectable right now. Obviously, it's on. My only concern with this is they put an 11 to 46 tooth cassette on there, which is okay. I think a 48 even would have been better. I'm not sure if the XLE can fit that. I'll research more into that. But 46 tooth these days is fairly outdated. It's not the end of the world. It could be worse. They could have thrown something else on there with a 42 tooth or something like that. And Microshift, the XLE line, does have pretty decent reviews. I've never used it, but it has pretty good reviews. So performance-wise, I'm not expecting anything bad. I just wish there was more gear range. Up front, it's a 32 tooth chain ring. It's State branded, as well as the cranks, which actually look kind of cool. I like this new logo that can flip either way and still says State. If you want, you are able to upgrade for $500 to the SRAM Axis Eagle drivetrain with an 11 to 50 tooth cassette, but yeah, that's what you're going to get. It is running WTB's STI 30 rims. These are kind of a workhorse rim, very common on a lot of bikes, honestly, not even more budget-oriented bikes, just lots of bikes. The hubs are not branded, from what I can tell, and so they're not the matching WTB hubs. We'll see how it does on engagement, on reliability, that type of thing. I'm not super picky with my hubs. The nice thing about these rims, though, is that they are tubeless ready, they're set up, and the bike comes with tubeless valves, as you'll see right there. So I got mine all set up, tubeless, ready to go for this first ride. The bars are 770 millimeters wide with a little bit of rise, and it's a 35 millimeter clamp. For the brakes, it's running Tektro HD M275s with 180 millimeter rotors front and rear. They are 2-piston, but we'll see how they do on the performance front. I wish they had at least spec'd a 4-piston up front, but it's not the end of the world. So on this size medium large, the recommended height is about 5'10", up to 6'2", I want to say. And I think the sizing on it is perfect for that. So it's got a 465 reach. The effective top tube is 645, so very roomy. But then your stack is 646. In this case, the stack and the effective top tube are basically identical, which is going to give you a pretty upright feeling, but not like you're sitting on a beach cruiser. Pretty roomy feel to it, very modern, but you get that stack to make it still fairly comfortable. All right, the head tube angle. So up front, 65 degrees. That's pretty dang slack. Good fit for me, I think, with the 130 millimeter fork. I think that's a really great combination on a hardtail, if you slacken it out a ton and then you throw a really long fork on it, I just feel like as it travels through the suspension, you end up getting some weird effects as everything steepens up and lowers. And so slack with a shorter travel fork, I think, is a great combination. The seat tube is 74.4, so not ultra steep, but still good. I love 74, 75, that range. I think it's a good middle ground to keep you able to weight the front, but not put you super far over that bottom bracket so that you're nice and comfortable. The last thing to note on the geometry front is the rear chainstay length, which is 426.5. So relatively short, especially for a 29er. So it should make the bike fairly playful, easy to manual or get that front end up. So you can see back here with this 2.4, it's not crazy roomy. They say you can fit up to a 2.6, which I believe that's right. You can also run a 27.5, and they recommend a 3-inch tire. I'm trying to get my hands on a Boost 27.5 wheel set so that I can run that, because obviously, you know me, I love that type of a setup. I love plus tires. There are no rack mounts on the back. So again, think they called it the Trail Hardtail for a reason. It's not necessarily meant for bike packing or ultra distance type of things, but you do get 2-pack, 3-pack, and a 3-pack down there. So it is able to carry some stuff. Oh, and as you'd expect, it does have a threaded bottom bracket, and you have also got mounts for a chain guard or a bash guard right there. That is enough talking from me. I think it's time to take this thing out and see how it rides. Oh, one other thing I realized I should mention is it is UDH compatible. So if you're wanting to run, say, SRAM transmission, you can do that. That's just the overall vibe I get about this bike, is they very much try to take care of those things that are gonna make it upgradable, something you can use for a long time. You know what else I forgot to talk about? The price. Okay, price-wise, $1,500. That does not include the dropper. And I will say, an experience I've had with it so far is it comes much less ready to go out of the box than most bikes. You need to cut the steerer on the front fork and put the star nut in. You need to put the cranks on. And if you don't have the capability to do that, you're gonna end up paying a shop. So it's still a good deal, but you are gonna have some labor costs unless you are able to take care of that stuff yourself. These are some pretty steep little kickers right here. Compared to some of the other bikes I've been riding recently, that front end is a little harder to manage on these steep climbs, slow speeds. It's not too bad though. Boy, do I wish this had a bigger cassette though. Man, brakes, I need to bed them in before all this. Ooh, not using my dropper either. That dropper is a 150 mil. That's what they put on the medium large. I think I could, well, not I think. I was gonna say, I know the extra large comes with a 170. I could 100% fit a 175 on here at my height on this bike. And I'm supposed to be on the shorter end of the range. So I think they should throw a 170 on here as an option. When I set this up, after it was tubeless and everything, weighed 34.4 pounds. Not super light. Don't know what you'd expect though from a steel frame and a lower end air fork. I think it's about what I expected. Now I'm probably a little behind the curve when it comes to really slack front ends. Like 65, I think this might be the second most slack bike I've ever ridden. And I don't know, it's a really interesting thing. I feel like these bikes are a bit boring on stuff like this and on dirt roads and climbs. They're just kind of boring. They really prioritize the fun and the capability on the downhill, which is great. It can make for a little bit of a blah ride the rest of the time. This bike is obviously meant for
more of the downhill stuff. So let's hit this little bonus line over here on this big rock slabby thing. Woo-hoo. The brakes are a little sketchy, but otherwise, whew, bike feels good. Kind of slammed that rear wheel right there, but the brakes were a little bit better bedded, and maybe 4-piston. That would have been just perfection. I feel like every time I do this loop, I get to this spot right here, and you ride across a whole bunch of really big, I don't know, rocks this big, a big section of that. And it's uphill, so it's not like I'm going fast, but it gives me a good chance to feel how compliant the frame is. And this isn't the most compliant frame I've ridden, but it's actually pretty good. You know, there's the phrase, steel is real. That's true in some ways, that, you know, you get a dent in it, it's not the end of the world, all that type of stuff. But when it comes to compliance and a good ride quality, it's going to depend on how the frame's built, and butting helps. So this is double butted, and typically on lower end bikes or less expensive bikes, it's not as great. They tend to be stiffer, almost overbuilt. This one, I'm not getting that. Again, it's not the most compliant I've ridden, but it's doing a pretty decent job. And I think that's especially important on a hardtail. Just adds a little bit of comfort. I'm sure it also, in some micro way, maybe helps maintain a little more traction. But for the most part, it's a comfort thing. You're not getting beat up as much, which is nice. Makes it so you can ride longer and doesn't take as much of a toll on your body. Fun to jump, easy to jump. Yeah, that rear end's nice and short. Makes it easier to hop it up. Woo! Oh, a little bit of a rut there, almost lost it. So I said, you know, it's not the most fun on the flatter stuff, but once you add some speed or some steepness or both, it starts to feel real playful. It becomes a fun bike. Fork's not too bad. Ridden worse for sure. The bigger stanchions add some rigidity. What was the other fork I rode? I think it was it a Judy? Did not get along with that one. It's funny though, because I was honestly, the first half of this ride, which is pretty much all uphill, it's 2.5 miles, almost 700 feet of climbing. I wasn't disappointed in the bike, but I just felt like, it's fine. Then you hit the downhill and you're like, oh, I get it. Super interested to see how this does with some 27.5 plus. I think a 3-inch tire and the smaller overall diameter is gonna make it extra playful, and with the more traction, extra capable. So I'm 100% gonna find something to do that. Woo. Nice and low, able to lean the bike over right there. This last little bit is my favorite for testing bikes out, because it's got a good mix of high speed and technical, and I think this bike's gonna be just fine. Woo-hoo. Yeah. I will say, as much as I like these tires, I think they are not quite as aggressive as the bike is. So You might like them a lot. There might be something you swap out fast.
All right, so let's wrap up real quick, talk about how that went. Overall, I totally get how the trail in the name fits. It's definitely more of a trail bike, more of a rowdy hardtail. It's not an adventure bike. It's not an XC bike. You might be able to use it for that, especially if you threw on a slightly shorter fork. But in general, this bike comes alive, from what I can tell, once things get fast, once things get technical and steep. So if that's something you are looking for, I think this is a really good deal for the price. Obviously, as I mentioned, there are some caveats there. You do have to put it together a little bit more. There's probably some other deals out there you could get that are going to have better brakes. Maybe it comes with the dropper in the price. But overall, very impressive package that State has put together. There are a couple things about it that are nothing to write home about. The drivetrain is fine. I wish it had more gear range. The brakes are fine. Those are probably the first thing I would swap out. Maybe though the cassette and derailleur. The fork is better than I thought. I think a lot of people, like I said, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on the Silo Silver. I thought it was okay. It wasn't amazing, but it also wasn't bad. I never felt like it was a huge hindrance to me, and I have barely tuned anything. I haven't messed with the rebound or the compression. It's got both. You can adjust. So I don't know. That is not something I would even worry about. If there are any questions that I didn't answer about this, any specs, any ride impressions you want to know about, let me know. Obviously, as is usual, I'm going to be riding this for the next little while before I do a full review on it, talk about the pros, the cons, who this bike is for, and obviously how it does in different configurations. So watch out for that. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see it. And yeah, let me know down in the comments what you think of this right here, the State 4130 Trail. And thanks for watching. See you next time.